I have to be honest with you. Looking at the table today, I feel like I've walked into a very confused librarian's office.
A bit of a spread, isn't it?
A bit of a spread is, well, that's putting it mild. On my left, we have these incredibly dense, chart-heavy academic journals.
The serious stuff.
The very serious stuff. I'm seeing the European Journal of Applied Physiology, something about evolutionary biology. I think I see a graph in this one that looks like a stock market crash.
It kind of felt that way reading it.
And then sitting right on top of this stack of hard science is a transcript of a YouTube video essay about action movies.
It looks like a gym bag exploded inside a film school.
That is exactly what it looks like. I mean, we've got muscle fibers right next to film criticism. Usually on a deep dive like this, we pick a lane.
Right.
We're either doing hard science or we're doing culture. Why are we mixing them today? What's the mission?
Because today we are talking about strength, but we're trying to solve a specific problem. There is this tension right now between what we know biologically about the human body and, specifically the differences between men and women.
Right.
And how that reality is being portrayed in our story, in our media.
So you mean the whole strong female character trope?
Exactly that. But we're not just going to, rant about movies for an hour. We're going to build a foundation.
Okay, so where do we start?
We're going to look at the hard biological reality, the physiological differences that are, well, frankly, they're often uncomfortable for people to talk about.
And
then we're going to take that data, that foundation, and use it as a kind of rubric to grade modern storytelling.
So we're fact-checking Hollywood with science.
In a way, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The core question we're asking is this. Are we defining strength way too narrowly? I mean, by forcing female characters to just mimic male biological advantages, like brute force and punching power,
Right.
Are storytellers actually devaluing unique forms of female strength?
That is a heavy question, and I have a feeling the answer isn't going to be simple at all. Before we jump in, let's audit what exact act.
So we are anchoring this whole thing in three major biological studies. First up, we have a 1993 paper by Miller and his colleagues. This is the Under the Hood study.
The deep dive into the engine itself.
Exactly. It's on muscle fiber character. Then moving forward a bit, we have a 2007 study by Leak et al. On hand grips.
I did glance at the abstract. Sample size massive.
It is huge. And the statistics in there are, well, they're the kind of numbers that can stop a conversation cold. We will definitely get to those.
Okay.
And then most recently, we have a 2020 study by Morris et al. About the evolution of the human punch. It's the one that links our anatomy directly to our history of interpersonal violence.
And the cultural angle.
That comes from a video essay It's titled, Strong Female Characters Are Just Toxic, and it's from the channel The Second.
That is a spicy type.
It is, but it provides the framework for why all this biological data actually matters when you sit down to watch a movie on Netflix.
Okay, so the mission, as I see it, is to find out if our fiction is writing checks that our biology can't cap.
And to see if, by writing those checks, we're actually bankrupting the entire concept of femininity in our stories.
All right, let's start with the hardware, the biological baseline. I think if you stopped a random person on the street and asked who is stronger, men or women, almost everyone would say men. That's common knowledge.
Sure.
But this Miller study you brought, it goes a lot deeper than just men lift heavier rocks, doesn't it?
It really does. So this study, it was published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology, and the researchers weren't just interested in the output. How much can you lift? They wanted to know the mechanism.
They wanted to look at the engine.
Precisely. So to do that, they performed needle biopsies on the participants.
Okay, stop right there. Needle biopsy. That sounds incredibly unpleasant. What does that actually entail?
It is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. They take a hollow needle, they insert it directly into the muscle belly.
Oh, wow.
In this case, it was the biceps brachii in the arm and the vastus lateralis in the thigh. That's a big muscle in your quad. And they essentially punch out a tiny cylinder of muscle tissue.
Ow, I'm wincing just thinking about it.
And then they take that tissue, they freeze it, slice it microscopically thin, and they stain it.
Why stain it?
So they can look at the individual muscle fibers under a microscope. The stain helps them differentiate the fiber types. So they were counting them, measuring their size, and typing them.
So there's no guesswork here. This is an estimation. They are literally looking at the cellular construction of human muscle.
It's direct observation.
So what did they find?
Well, let's start with the headline numbers first. Just in terms of voluntary strength, how much force they could generate. They found that women were approximately 52% as strong as men in the upper body.
52. So effectively half.
Roughly half, yeah. In the lower body, the gap was a bit smaller. Women were about 66% as strong as men.
2/3. Okay.
And this is fairly standard data. It confirms what a lot of other studies have found. But the biopsy results, that's where it gets really interesting. They wanted to know why.
Right.
Is it just that men have more muscle? A bigger cross-sectional area, or is the muscle itself actually different?
So a quantity issue versus a quality, or, well, not quality, a type issue.
A type and size issue, exactly.
Right.
And it turns out it's a bit of both, but the fiber size is the real smoking gun. You know about type I and type 2 fibers?
Vaguely. Give me a quick refresher.
Okay, so think of type I fibers as a Prius.
A Prius. Got it.
They are your slow twitch fibers. They're super efficient. They use oxygen really well, and they are built for endurance. They can go all day, but they aren't very fast or powerful.
Okay. My marathon running fiber.
Exactly. Now, type 2 fibers, they are a top fuel dragster. They're your fast twitch fiber. They burn fuel explosively to generate massive amounts of force very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But they fatigue fast. These are the fibers you're using when you throw a punch, sprint, or lift a heavy box off.
Power versus endurance, simple enough. So what did the microscope show? How did they differ between men and...
So in the bicep, the men's type I fibers, the Prius fiber, were on average about 4,597 square microns. For women, they were 3,400. So men have bigger endurance even there. But the type 2 fiber, the drags, that's where the gap explodes.
How big of a gap are we...
Men's type 2 fibers average 7,700 square microns.
7,000. Okay. And women's?
Women's average 4,000.
Wow. Wait a minute. So the male power fibers are almost double the size of the female power fibers?
Nearly double. And remember, this isn't the whole muscle. This is the cross-sectional area of a single individual fiber.
That's incredible.
It suggests that the strength difference isn't just about training or effort or, willpower. It's architectural. At the most fundamental cellular level, men are built with significantly larger explosive engines.
This is interesting because we so often hear the argument, well, if a woman just trains hard enough, she can close that gap. But you're saying the baseline materials are fundamentally different.
You can absolutely improve the engine you have. Training is incredibly effective. Women can get incredibly strong relative to their own baseline.
Sure.
But if you have a V8 engine and I have a V4 engine and we both tune them up to their absolute maximum potential, the V8 is still going to produce more torque. That's just physics.
So, okay, let's bring it back to the movie. When we see a film where a 110-pound woman is trading punches with a 220-pound mercenary, and she's matching him blow for blow, not with technique, but with raw power, biology is kind of dead.
Biology is screaming. Because not only did she have less mass to put behind the punch, the actual cellular engines driving that arm are on average half the size.
The numbers just don't add up.
They don't. But muscles are one thing. I feel like we can visually fudge that in movies, We say, oh, she's got a secret technique, or she's just really wiry and strong.
Right, the Bruce Lee argument.
Exactly. But the study that really shocked me, the one that's much harder to ignore, was the second one you brought, the leak study on grip strength. This is the one that usually makes people a little uncomfortable.
I can see why. This wasn't some small lab test with a dozen, right?
No, this was a massive data set. Over 1,600 men and 500 women. All of them were healthy young people, mostly aged 20 to 25, the prime of life.
And what did they measure?
Maximal isometric hand grip strength. So basically, they gave them a dynamometer. It's a device you squeeze, and just said, squeeze as hard as you possibly can.
Hand grip seems like such a specific, almost random thing to measure. Why grip strength? Why is that so important?
Because grip is an amazing proxy for overall upper body utility. It's how we interact with the world physically. We hold tools, we hold weapons, we climb things, we grapple with people. If your grip fails, your entire upper body strength is almost useless.
Can't apply the force you have.
You can't apply it. It's the final link in the chain.
Okay, so what did the data show? Let's start with the average.
The average difference was stark, as you'd expect. Men squeezed at about 541 newtons of force. Women came in at 329 newtons.
Okay, newtons is a bit abstract for me. Put that in real-world terms for us. How can you visualize that?
That's a great question. So think about crushing a full unopened soda can. It takes about 300 to 400 newtons of force to crush a standard aluminum can if you squeeze it from the sides.
Oh, okay.
So the average woman is right at that threshold. She might crush it, she might not. The average man is crushing it easily with quite a bit of force to spare.
Okay, that helps visualize it. That's a clear difference. But you mentioned before we started that the distribution curves were the real story here.
Right. That's the part that's truly mind-boggling. If you plot all these results on a graph, you get two classic bell curves, one for men and one for women.
Sure.
Now, usually, with human traits like height or IQ or whatever, the curves overlap a lot. There are plenty of very tall women who are taller than plenty of short men.
Right. I know plenty of women who are taller than Danny DeVito.
Exactly. The overlap is significant. But with grip strength, the overlap was almost non-existent.
What do you mean, non-existent?
They found that 90% of the females in the study produced less force than 95% of the males.
Wait, can you say that again? 90% of women?
Were weaker in their grip than 95% of...
That implies that if you just picked a random man and a random woman off the street, the odds of the woman having a stronger grip are almost vanishingly small.
Incredibly low. The bell curves barely touch each other. There's this massive valley between the two peaks.
But, okay, here is where the skeptic in me, and definitely the screenwriter in Hollywood, steps in. They'd say, sure, those are average women. That's the general population. But my character isn't average. She's an assassin. She's a ninja. She's an Olympic athlete.
A perfectly valid hypothesis. And it's the obvious question. Can elite training overcome this massive biological gap?
Right.
Leak and his team anticipated that exact question. So they went out and they recruited 60 highly trained elite female athletes.
Okay, who are we talking about here? CrossFitters? Weightlifters?
Even more specialized for grip. They got national-level judo competitors and handball players.
Judo. Okay, that makes sense.
Think about judo for a second. It is 100% grip. You have to grab your opponent's heavy cotton uniform, the grip, and you have to manipulate their entire body weight.
And they're trying to break your grip the whole time.
Constantly. They're trying to rip their arm away. If you don't have a grip of steel, you just lose. There's no way around it. So these women are the absolute best of the best when it comes to functional grip strength.
So we have the judo champions versus the average Joes. I think I'm still betting on the judo.
You would think so. And to be fair, the elite athletes were significantly stronger than the untrained women. Of course, they pulled about 444 Newton compared to the 329 baseline for regular.
So training works. It makes a huge difference.
It makes a massive difference. This is the statistic that completely destroys the Hollywood narrative when they compared these elite female judo champions to the untrained men.
The guys who play video games and don't go to the gym.
Those guys. The average Joe. The elite female athlete's grip strength, on average, only corresponded to the 25th percentile of the male subject.
Hold on, you have to unpack that. You're telling me that a world-class female grappler, someone who trains for grip strength every single day,
yes,
on average, has the same hand strength as a guy who is in the bottom quarter of the entire male population for strength?
That is exactly what the data says. They rarely surpass the 50th percentile of untrained men.
So, the strongest, most highly trained women are at best average compared to...
At best, which means that even with a lifetime of elite specialized training, a woman is struggling to match the innate, untrained grip strength of a man who doesn't work out at all.
That is actually kind of mind-blowing. It really reframes the whole idea of suspension of disbelief in action.
It really does. Think about the standard action movie scene. The heroine is dangling off a cliff.
Yep.
And she's holding a 200-pound man by one hand, by his wrist.
Or she's in a grappling match with some massive soldier, and she grabs his wrist and just twists it, forcing him to his knees in pain.
Based on this data, that soldier, even if he's totally untrained, very likely has a significantly stronger grip than she does. He should just be able to pull his hand away.
Effortless.
Wouldn't even be a contest.
Yeah.
It highlights this massive sexual dimorphism that we often gloss over because, we want the fight scene to look cool and empowering.
But biologically, it's akin to a house cat trying to hold down a golden retriever. The physics just don't work.
The physics just don't add up.
Which brings us to the big why. Why on earth would nature design us this way? Why is the gap so enormous in the upper body? I mean, in the legs, you said it was closer women at 66% of male strength. Why did evolution dump all the character points into male arms and hands?
And that leads us perfectly into our third biological paper. This is the Morris et al. Paper from 2020. The title is Sexual Dimorphism in Human Arm Power and Fighting Ability.
They weren't hiding the ball with that title.
Not at all. They proposed what they call the protective buttressing hypothesis. But really, when you boil it down, it's about aggression.
Fighting!
They argue that the human male upper body specifically evolved for one primary purpose, male-male competition.
Fighting with fists.
Fighting with fists. We are, as far as we know, the only primates that can form a true compact fist.
Really? A chimp can't make a fist.
Not like we can. Their thumbs are longer, their fingers are different proportions. They can kind of curl their fingers, but they can't create that flat buttress club that a human hand can.
And Morris and his team tested the punching motion specifically. What was this arm cranking machine?
Yes, it was an inertial load odometer. The best way to picture it is like a stationary bike, but for your arms. Okay. And instead of a smooth pedaling motion, you have to crank it explosively against a heavy resistance. They tested two primary, cranking forward, which is a very close mimic of a punch.
An arm protract.
Exactly. And cranking backward, which is more like a row or a pull.
And I'm guessing men were stronger.
Men were stronger across the board in every measurement, but the margin is what mattered. The key finding was that the gap between men and women was significantly wider for the punching motion than it was for the throwing or pulling motion.
So men aren't just stronger overall, we are biologically specialized for punching.
That is the powerful implication of the study, and it connects all the dots. The study notes that human males have, on average, 75% more muscle mass in their arms compared to females.
75%. But in the legs?
In the legs, it's only about 50% more. So nature disproportionately loaded the male upper body.
It reminds me of, well, have you ever seen a picture of a male kangaroo?
It is the perfect analogy. I was thinking the same thing.
If you look at a big male red kangaroo, they look like bodybuilders. They have these huge chests, massive forearms. The females look completely different, much more slender.
And why is that?
Because male kangaroos box, they stand up on their tails and they grapple and they punch each other for dominance and mating rights.
Exactly. Evolution favored the ones with the biggest biceps and the strongest arms.
And we are just, what, bald apes doing the same thing?
In a biological sense, precisely. In the great apes, gorillas, orangutans' high sexual dimorphism, a big difference in size and strength between males and females always correlates with intense male-male physical aggression.
And humans fit that pattern.
Humans fit this pattern perfectly. We are, it seems, a species built for a very specific kind of violence.
Okay, let's pause here for a second and synthesize the biological picture we've painted for. It's pretty stark.
It is.
We have men with fast twitch muscle fibers that are almost twice as large and therefore more explosive. We have grip strength, where the strongest, most elite women barely overlap with the weakest, most untrained men.
A huge gap.
And we have an evolutionary history that seems to have purposefully turned the male upper body into a specialized punch.
That is the biological chassis we're all working with.
Right. So now let's take this chassis and drive it straight into a writer's room in Los Angeles.
This is where the crash happened.
This is where the friction is. Because we have this unyielding biological reality, and then we have the stories we tell ourselves about that.
And this is where we bring in our final source, the second story transcript. Video, again, is titled, "Strong Female Characters Are Just Toxic Men."
Which is, as I said, a provocative title.
It is, but the argument it makes is actually quite nuanced. It starts with the classic trope that I'm sure you've seen 100 times, the weapon shop scene.
Oh, I know this one instantly. The female warrior walks in. The grizzled old shopper says, this sword is far too heavy for you. Perhaps a nice light dagger.
And how does she react? What's her line?
She gets offended, right? She scowls. She grabs the biggest, heaviest broadsword on the wall, the one she calls the man-sized sword.
Of course.
And she swings it around like it's made of styrofoam, and then she sneers at the guy. I'll take this one.
And the audience cheers. Yeah, you show him smash the patriarchy. But the critique that this video makes is, isn't that scene actually kind of stupid?
Because of the biology we just spent 20 minutes discussing.
Exactly. It's the biological equivalent of a woman walking into a shoe store, the clerk offering her a size 7, and her indignantly demanding a size 12 men's work boot because she wants to be a strong female character.
It doesn't make her strong, it just makes her look ill-fitted for the task. She's performing a caricature of strength rather than having strength that actually fits her reality.
And that's the core of the video's argument, that modern writers are treating the word strong as a synonym for masculine physical power. They are writing what the critique calls the man in a woman's skin.
Explain that concept a little more, the man in a woman's.
It means that for a female character to be considered strong by a lot of modern storytelling standards, she's often stripped of her distinctly feminine trait and given distinctly male ones.
And it's not just about lifting heavy swords.
Oh, not at all. It's about her entire behavior, her psychology.
Can you give me an example from the source?
The video brings up the character of Stella Gibson from the show The Fall. Now, on the surface, she's a celebrated character. She's a brilliant detective, very cool, very competent. But the critique points out that she behaves with what we would usually label as toxic masculinity.
How so? What does she do?
She's emotionally cold, almost detached. She picks up a random, much younger male colleague in a bar for a one-night stand, treats him like a sexual object, and then discards him without a second thought. She exerts dominance in almost every interaction.
And the argument is that if a male character...
We'd say, wow, what a jerk. That guy needs to go to therapy. He has intimacy. But because a woman is doing it, it's framed as empowerment, as strengths.
So the message from the writers is, to be equal to men, you must act like the worst kind of...
Or at the very least, to be strong, you must shed your femininity. The underlying and maybe unintentional message is that femininity itself, being nurturing, being emotionally connected, being physically smaller, is a weakness that must be overcome.
It ties directly into this modern obsession with agency, doesn't it? I hear that word constantly. Does the female character have...
The video does a great job of deconstructing what it calls the agency fallacy.
Okay.
In modern Hollywood, the word agency seems to have morphed into this very narrow idea that a woman has no agency if she listens to a man, or if she needs help, or if she serves a supporting role in someone else's story.
Which is an absurd definition when you apply it to the real world. I mean, if I join the army, I follow a general's order. I haven't lost my agency. I've chosen to be part of a team.
Exactly.
If I ask my husband to open a stubborn pickle jar because his grip strength is 541 newtons and mine is 300, I'm not weak. I'm being pragmatic. I want a pickle.
Exactly. Agency is simply the ability to make a choice. A woman who chooses to sacrifice her career to raise her children is exercising profound agency. A woman who chooses to trust a male partner is exercising agency. But the modern girl boss archetype says no.
She has to do it all herself.
She must be independent, solitary, and of course, physically dominant over men.
And when you force that physical dominance into the story, you smash right into that uncanny valley we were talking about.
We're right back to the leak study and the grip strength curve. When you have a 110-pound female character beat up a 200-pound trained henchman in his simple fistfight, I'm not talking about outsmarting him or shooting him.
No, just overpowering.
Just overpowering him in a brawl. It just feels fake.
It breaks the immersion.
It breaks the immersion because our lizard brains know the biology. We know that grip strength curve exists. Even if we haven't seen the data, we know the muscle fiber. The host in the video says something that I think is really important. He says, it's not misogynistic to acknowledge biology. It's real.
So if we're saying that the man in a woman's skin is a flawed model, does that mean women can't be action heroes? Are we saying that female characters should just stay in the kitchen in movies?
Absolutely not. And this is where the conversation gets really constructive and interesting. The critique isn't saying women are weak. It's saying women are strong in different ways. And the crazy thing is, our stories used to know this.
You're talking about the lost archetypes.
The lost archetypes. Think about Sarah Connor in Terminator 2.
Oh, an absolute icon. The image of her doing chin-ups in the psych ward is burned into my brain.
She is terrifyingly strong. But what is our motivation? Why is she doing those chin-ups? Why does she become this warrior?
To protect John, her son.
Exactly. She isn't fighting to prove she's the toughest person in the room. She isn't fighting for glory or for dominance. She is fighting with the fire of the maternal instinct. She will burn the entire world to ash to save her offspring.
That is a distinctly female biological drive, that protective instinct.
It is. And it's unbelievably powerful. Or look at Ripley in Alien. The climax of that entire movie isn't soldier versus monster. It's mother versus mother.
Get away from her, you bitch.
That line is one of the most iconic in film history because it's so primal. It's the mother bear archetype. The video calls it the supreme final form of the mother lifting the car off her child.
A kind of hysterical strength.
It's a form of strength that men don't really have access to in the same way. It's unique to women, and we've just forgotten how to write it.
It seems like a lot of modern movies are actively afraid of that mother label.
I think they are, because they view motherhood or even just nurturing as a burden. They see interdependence as weakness. So instead of giving us the powerful mother bear, we just get the female James Bond.
Which brings us to the Schmitz. Sociosexuality from Argentina to Zimbabwe. That is quite a title.
It was a massive cross-cultural study. They looked at 48 different nations all over the globe, and they were measuring a psychological trait called sociosexuality.
Okay, you have to define that for us.
Sociosexuality is basically a measure of your personal mating strategy. So on one end of the spectrum, you're restricted, meaning you prefer long-term commitment and a strong emotional connection before having sex.
And the other end
is unrestricted, meaning you're more willing to have casual sex without commitment, and you might seek out multiple partners.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess there's a gender divide.
A universal one.
Yeah.
Across all 48 nations, it didn't matter if it was a conservative culture or a liberal. Men, on average, are significantly more unrestricted than women.
This tracks with basic evolutionary biology, right? Parental investment.
100%. From a purely biological standpoint, a man can reproduce with 5 minutes of effort and very little cost. A woman historically commits to 9 months of pregnancy, a dangerous childbirth, and then years of nursing.
So women biologically have to be more selective. They have more to lose.
Right. And men are, again, from a purely biological perspective, wired to cast a wider net.
So men are biologically more likely to act like James Bond.
Sleeping with the enemy spy, no strings attached, and then moving on to the next mission and the next woman. That is a hyper-male fantasy, but it's a fantasy that is rooted in real male biological incentive.
But now we write female characters like that.
We do. We write these strong female characters who sleep around promiscuously, have no emotional attachments, and treat sex as casually as man might. And the critique argues that this often just rings false. It doesn't feel authentic to the female experience.
It feels like a costume they're wearing.
It feels like a male writer's fantasy of what a cool girl is. Or maybe it's a political statement that women can do anything men can do. And sure, of course, women can do that. Individual women can do anything. But as a broad archetype for female strength, it clashes with the reality of how most women operate across the globe.
So let me see if I'm getting this right. We're taking our female characters, we're stripping them of their unique biological strengths, like the maternal or protective.
Yes.
And then we're pasting on a male mating strategy, and a male level of physical power that, as the science shows, is biologically unrealistic.
And we slap a label on it and call it progress.
When you put it that way, it sounds a lot more like erasure than progress.
The video argues that it is erasure. And it argues that this creates what it calls a moral superiority of muscle.
It's a fascinating phrase. Break that down for me.
The idea is that if the only way for a female character to be seen as good, worthy, or strong is for her to physically compete with men, to punch like them, to fight like them, to have sex like them, then we are implicitly telling young girls that their own natural feminine traits are defect.
We're telling them that being nurturing is weak, that being physically smaller is a failure, that wanting or needing an emotional connection is a flaw to be overcome.
Exactly. We are teaching them to hate their own nature.
Yeah.
We are basically saying, you can be powerful, but only provided you stop acting like a girl.
That is actually deeply depressing when you think about it.
It is. But the good news is there's a way out. We don't have to be stuck here. We just have to broaden our definition of what strength is. We need to remember all the other forms of power that exist.
Okay, so give me some examples. If she's not punching the main bad guy in the face, how is she winning this?
Moral strength. The video brings up Jane Eyre. She has zero physical power. She's poor, she's an orphan, she's physically small, but her integrity, her absolute refusal to compromise her soul for comfort or for love makes her, she exerts power through pure principle.
Resilience is another one. The sheer ability to endure.
Endurance is a huge one. And women, by the way, are often biologically built for better endurance. Remember those type I fibers? A character who survives trauma, who outlasts the storm, who keeps her family and her community together while the world is falling apart. That is an immense form of strength.
The video mentioned a character from a show I confess I haven't, Consort Jing.
From Nirvana in Fire. This is a perfect example and a great show you should watch. She's a concubine in the imperial court of ancient China. She has zero physical power. She can't lift a sword. If she got into a fist fight with a palace guard, she would lose instantly.
So how is she the strong one?
Because she is by far the smartest person in the entire palace. She uses patience, her knowledge of medicine, and this incredible maternal maneuvering to outwit the emperor, protect her son, and eventually, through years of quiet, subtle work, put him on the throne.
So she wins by being more feminine, not less.
Exact. She weaponizes her soft power, her empathy, her intelligence, her patience.
And that sounds so much more interesting and compelling to watch than a 90-pound woman kicking a 300-pound guy through a drywall.
It's more interesting because it's complex, and it feels true to the human experience.
And by doing this, by forcing women to be men in women's skins, we lose the great female villains too, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. The devouring mother archetype. That is a terrifying and ancient form of villainy.
Like the mother in Stephen King's Carrie.
The perfect example. Or Olivia in the TV show 12 Monkeys. She doesn't beat people up. She uses her empathy like a weapon to manipulate. She grooms them. She creates a death cult by becoming the mother that all her followers never had.
That is a specifically female form of evil. Chilling.
It's psychologically chilling. But if your main female villain's only skill is that she knows karate,
then she's just a generic henchman. You lose the entire psychological horror of the twisted feminine.
You lose all that complexity.
We've covered a massive amount of ground here today. I mean, we started with needle biopsies and the cross-sectional area of muscle fibers.
I know, it's been a journey.
We went through the evolutionary basis for grip strength, and we ended up analyzing the character of Jane Eyre.
It's a lot to process.
But the thread really does hold, doesn't it? The biology explains the physical reality. The physical reality should, in a good story, inform the character. And when it doesn't, we end up with these plastic, artificial characters that don't feel real.
That's it, exactly. The data from Miller and Leake and Morris, it isn't there to say women are inferior. It's there to say women are different.
And different is good for storytelling. Same is just boring.
Same is incredibly boring. Why would you want every character to be the same?
So here is the final thought I want to leave everyone. It's a bit of a challenge.
Let's hear it.
If we can only imagine a woman as being strong when she acts exactly like a man, when she beats people up, when she sleeps around without attachment, when she needs no one, do we actually like women?
Or do we just like the concept of men and we want women to be them?
I think that's the question that unlocks this entire debate.
It really is. It forces you to examine your own assumptions.
So next time you're watching the latest blockbuster or the new streaming series, watch it with this lens. Look at the strong female character and just ask yourself, is that a strong woman? Or is that just a male character in disguise?
Once you start seeing it, you really can't
Thanks for diving deep with us today. This was fascinating.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next